Hey, what's up, guys? Ryan Jordan here today, and today we're going to be talking about group and team dynamics. Here assisting me is Richard Goodman. How you doing today, Goodman?
Doing all right. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, about 100 years ago, a guy named Ringman coined the theory that basically stated the more people that was involved in the group, that joined the group, the less work that was produced.
So, yes, I actually work at a precinct at our local Geek Squad. Um, Basically, the idea is if you have a larger group of people, less work gets done per individual. And I can say, unfortunately, there have been times where you'll just pass work off to the next guy that comes in after you, and something just may not get done for a little while because you don't want to take responsibility for it. Somebody says get something done by Tuesday. You don't want to be the guy who doesn't get it done by Tuesday. So if you have 6 or 7 people that failed, it's a lot easier to take the blame for that than having just you who failed, and in our case, getting fired or something like that. Same deal with pretty much any kind of job you can think of. If you can think of passing the blame off to someone else or distributing it evenly to 7 or 8 different people, it'll go a little smoother for you, and you're looking out for number one after all. So, but after that, I believe kind of a product of that would be social loafing. Would you like to inform everybody on that?
Social loafing is basically a loss of motivation that affects a team's cohesion. So if they go from like a winning season and certain players are lost that were key to the team before, they just lose the motivation to desire to keep going to work as hard as what they did the year before. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So, if, for example, the star player of a football team rotates out senior year and they're just not there anymore, and they were the big name, they were the key part of that team, and they're just gone now, that team next year is probably not going to perform as well as they did the previous year. Obviously, because they're missing a big part of the team, but also because that big name isn't there. That morale that guy provided is just not there anymore for them to kind of rally on and go like, oh, Jimmy Smith is doing real good. We should do real good too. It's kind of a hive mind kind of effect that goes on whenever something like that happens. So
I can attest to that. My senior year of high school is probably the best team my high school's ever had. And the year after that, when we all graduated, the football program declined. They went 2-8. There wasn't any real leaders on the team like we had the year before, and it hasn't gone back to that. The program hasn't been the same since we graduated. So I can definitely attest to a social loafing back in my high school.
I think you said they got like 1 win this whole season so far.
They have right? 1 win
there
this whole season. So
yeah.
They went 0-10 last season too. So Harwood explained the 5 C's of combining the team dynamics and infusing them together, which would be commitment, communication, concentration, control, and confidence. Can you elaborate on what each of these would do for team and groups?
So each of those are very, very important to a team or group. If you don't have communication, nobody knows what's going on, and everybody has their heads cut off like chickens, kind of running around not knowing what's happening. As far as control goes, if you have a leader of any kind, or even if you don't, it's very important that each person have their at least part of the situation under control. So if everybody has a role they have to take care of, they need to take care of that role. If it's getting out of control, then you need to at least see somebody to get help, which is, again, part of the communication thing. Another part of that would be confidence, the third C here. Spinning off of that, confidence is a big part of what makes you perform better. Going back to that morale thing with the social loafing aspect. If you are not confident in how good your football team can do, that football team will not do as well because you're not believing in yourself or your teammates. You're going to go, oh, it's another year of going 0-10, and you're resigning yourself to that. You're not trying as hard, and that might just be the fate that you reach. As far as concentration, that if somebody gets distracted by something, it basically keeps everybody off track. If a link in the chain of the football team or even the group at work, for example, the Geek Squad precinct I work at, if something isn't working right, if somebody doesn't get called for 2 weeks saying their computer's ready, there's obviously going to be a big issue there. Same deal if somebody isn't doing their job on the team, then if QB gets sacked, obviously something needs to be taken care of there because that should not be happening. That's your job to prevent that from happening. What's our remaining C?
It's commitment.
Commitment. So commitment to the job is making sure it gets taken care of. So going back to that Rengelman theory, if they say to get the job done by Tuesday, it doesn't matter that there's 6 or 7 of you. You should get it done. Obviously, same theory says if it doesn't get done, oh well, not that big of a deal. There's 7 of you. But getting that job done and then having everybody focus on getting that same task taken care of is obviously a very important part of getting that task taken care of. Kind of tying into confidence there as well. So if you are not committed and confident in doing that task, and there's a good chance to be like, oh, all right, well, we'll just take an L for that one. That's not going to do anything for us. Oh, well, no big deal. Obviously, not a good thing. So,
and I know the coaches, all college coaches, high school coaches, all professional coaches, they all harp on these 5 C's. So, for example, like commitment, athletes such as football players, they're day in and day out, just about every day of the week, they're spending probably about 4 to 5 hours a day, including lifting sessions and then practice on top of that, preparing for the next game or so. And they have classes on top of that. So they got to be really committed to the academic part and the athletic part of that so they can get the job done. Communication, that's key. It's not if coaches got to communicate with the players so everyone knows that they're on the same page. So if a play is messed up, that could be on the coach's hand for not signaling the play right, or it could be on, let's say, in the offense on the QB. QB may not have signaled the play right, he not have called it right. I know multiple situations in my career that has happened, that we have run the wrong play because the quarterback has signaled it wrong. Also goes into control and confidence. You got to keep your composure, keep your control. When you're on the field, you don't want to get a personal foul for trying to punch someone because you just lost your cool. It's happened. I've seen it before. And confidence, it just not always telling your players good job, because then they'll think that they're always doing a good job. It's got to be positive. It can be positive and negative feedback. So
you have to be told if you're not doing a good job, or
Yes.
at least told how to improve on that. Because
yeah.
if you're like, oh, well, I mean, you're not very good, but good job anyway. Yeah, no, great. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to improve. That's not going to be good for the team or good for you or good for anybody except, maybe the opposing team, I guess. But
Yeah, constructive criticism.
there you go.
What I was trying to get at,
Yeah.
lost the word. I know a lot of players have preferences and coaches. So there are some coaches that I've had that screamed and yelled at just about any situation, any player, didn't matter who he was, and that produced a bad influence. They gave the player a bad attitude about the coach and what was being done for the team. And then there's coaches that they come up and talk to you. They let you know what you're doing wrong. They let you know what you're doing wrong, but they weren't yelling at you. They were calmly talking to you, and I believe that has the best results in players is calm, collective coach that knows how to actually interact with his players without screaming and yelling all the time. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, it's very important to communicate the message of, it wasn't so hot, try better next time, work on whatever it is you need to work on. Just knowing where the improvements need to be made and all that is probably the most important part of giving criticism without being the yelling, screaming, bad atmosphere kind of coach. So,
And was any criticism at your workplace? that an employee took the wrong way or wasn't presented in the best way?
So, at my old precinct, I actually used to live in Iowa. There was an occasion where my my friend, we were both hired at the same time, and we were both fairly new. There was a situation where somebody was being very, very rude to my friend, and we went out to help with him. And my friend was responding the way any normal person would. He was a little ticked off. Obviously, we're trying to help this person, and they're just not. Basically, they did not like our answer as to how we were able to help them. Being very, very rude. And after the whole situation was resolved, we got our manager involved and that kind of thing. Our manager took us both in the back, and I was mostly just overhearing it, but my friend got a talking to about being part of a team, being part of this group that we're in. You have to meet a certain expectation. There might be people who yell at you even though you are trying to help them as best as you can, and you explain to them that thing you're asking me to do is not physically possible, or whatever. They don't understand that, maybe, and you may have to try to explain that better. But regardless of the situation, you have to keep your cool. You are part of a team. If you don't, it will make your team look bad. It will make you not perform as well. He kind of took that a little too seriously. A little negatively. He kind of had a negative impact from that. Kind of looked at the manager a little bitterly from that point on. But he did work on that, and eventually he kind of saw where he was coming from. He saw that we were then a team of like 10 or so people, and if one of us is not acting correctly or doing our job, then that's a huge deal. That's a tenth of the team not working correctly. So that has to get fixed as quickly as possible. So that's one of my examples at least.
So lastly, like to sum things up, all these the Ringelman theory, Steiner's theory, and Harwood's 5 C's all kind of tie into the big aspect of social loafing. So how can social loafing be prevented?
So easiest way to prevent social loafing is mostly just see where the problems are. If it is just a morale issue, then find out how to raise morale again. If it's just an issue of, oh, there's 8 people, I can slack off. Find the people who are slacking off and either say, hey, you need to get in shape, you need to do what your job is, or you need to get out and we can find somebody who can do it. Or whatever the problem is, you need to speak with the individual that's the link in the chain, part of the team that is causing the problem, and make sure that gets taken care of, because if it doesn't, that could spread to other people and go like, oh, well, if Tim's not working that hard, I don't need to either. I can slack off. I can, work half as hard as John or Jim. It's not a big deal. If everybody thinks like that, then the entire team is working at 50% capacity, and obviously that's not good for the team or anybody. You're not learning how to be a part of a team. You're learning how to slack off, mostly. So, as far as fixing it goes, it's mostly just making sure that you keep it down while you can, or at least minimize it, just because it can snowball into a much bigger issue very quickly.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for helping me there.
My pleasure.
And thanks for watching.